stopes that are 10 times bigger than this. There's one we go into that's bigger than a football field. And from the floor to the back above, it's 250 feet. That's a big hole in there. The mines ran 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. They ran 2 crews in 10-hour shifts underground with a 2-hour break in between those shifts for all the air to settle out and dust to clear. So you work 10 hours, you set your dynamite, you go up to the surface, you evacuate, go do some work up there, wait 2 hours, and then the next crew comes down for their 10 hours underground. Their only light source are candles, just like this right here. Candles were expensive. The first couple of years here, they rationed the candles. Each man was given 3 candles for his 10 hours underground. Those types of old beeswax candles, they only lasted about 2 to 2.5 hours. You got 3 for 10 hours. Does anybody see a little problem with that? Yeah, you're going to start running out of candle pretty soon, right? So you're typically in a 3-man team. You're only going to light 1 or 2 of these at a time. That's it. Just enough to eliminate the immediate area. That third guy, he's going to hang on to some of his till the end of the day. Because remember, you've got to find your way out of here in the darkness. If you're down 300 feet and you don't have some candle left, you're going to be in trouble. You're not going to make your way out. It's dangerous. But miners have bad days, just like we all do. Things don't always go according to plan underground. Push came to shove, you're having a bad day and you've used more candle than you anticipated, but you've got 3 more hours of work to do. You got a little stub of candle left quite like that right there. You can't leave once you're down here. You have to finish the job no matter what. You've got to stay down for the full 10 hours. So these men were good. They'd light a candle then just long enough to get their next hole started, single jacking, and then they'd put the candle out and they would drill, sometimes for hours in complete and total darkness. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? Let me give you an idea what that feels like. This is your working environment, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. You don't have hard hats. You're trying not to hit your head on the ceiling. You're trying not to trip over some kind of rubble. You're trying not to fall down a 300-foot shaft. You're trying to sort out the light rock from the black rock. And you're drilling all those holes. And you're playing with dynamite and lit candles all day long. What can possibly go wrong? And sometimes, you know what? You had to drill in complete darkness. Cool, huh? That's dark. Besides outer space, it doesn't get any darker than down here in these mines. So that's some of the things these men had to do. Incredible, right? Mm-hmm. So because of the darkness, they kept losing things, misplacing their tools, for example. So we find these beautiful original tools, single jack drills. This is a double jack drill. This is what you'd be holding up in the air. They would never double jack in the dark. They made sure they had candle for that. That's an original candle holder we found. We find old tobacco tins. We find a lot of this. That's original dynamite fuse. About a 135-year-old dynamite fuse. You light this with a match and that eventually will set off your dynamite. And we find a lot of these old tin cans. This is what they're eating their lunch out of. Tin cans like these. They're using tin cans so their food isn't getting full of dust and dirt during the day. The thing about these tin cans, it doesn't matter if they were eating peaches, pears, beans, tomatoes, it doesn't really matter. These cans on the outside and on the inside, they're all soldered together with lead. You look inside this can, it is just full of lead. There are stories about the mad miners. Those stories come from the fact these men were all suffering severe neurological disorders, going mad due to lead poisoning from eating out of cans like that. And it only took about 3 years before it became a fatal condition. Good times, right? Everybody okay? Everybody doing all right? Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, we're going to transition to the next stope. Watch your heads, watch your step. All right, the stope that we're in now, that one was called the Rotunda. These stopes all have names, going back all the way back. This stope is known as the chapel. And again, here in the chapel, we find all this beautiful original wood, perfectly preserved, still doing its job. It's long outlived these miners. Take a look behind you and to your left, over yonder. Can you see the bend in that board right there? Yeah, that's reassuring, right? That's the world on a toothpick. You have no idea the amount of weight that's on that little piece of wood. But again, it's further evidence of how good these men were and why they got paid so much money. Miners in Tombstone made $4 a day, and they worked 6 days a week. $4 a day, 6 days a week. It doesn't sound like much, does it? No. Back then, if you were a private in the cavalry at Camp Huachuca, if you were a ranch hand, a teamster, a drover, most jobs back then paid between $10 and $20 a month. $4 a day, 6 days a week, that's sounding pretty good now. It's a lot more than anybody else is making. That's $135,000 a year in today's money. Sounds a little better now, doesn't it? You betcha. And that money's spent well here in Tombstone. There are a lot of things you could spend your money on. I'm going to edit because we've got some young ones with it, but there are a lot of things you could spend your money on, right? That's right. Give you a couple of examples. Since you first arrived here a year and a half ago, you've been living in a tent. This is a tent city. There's no town yet. Hundreds and hundreds of miners' tents littering these hills. No water, Apache Indian country, scorpions, rattlesnakes, coyotes, javelina, tarantulas, deadly centipedes. Nasty business living out here in the tent. Harsh weather conditions on top of all that. Now they're building a town. You're going to move out of your tent. You're going to move into town to be a little closer to the action, let's say. You're going to rent a miner's cabin. It's going to cost you $15 a month for rent. You're going to be sharing that shack with 6 other smelly miners, but it's better than living in a tent. Now you're coming up in the world. You could get a good meal in Tombstone for 50 cents. Steak dinner, 75 cents. We were eating seafood here in 1880. Crab, lobster, oysters. No railroad until 1903. We're eating seafood here in 1880. Think about that. It's the middle of nowhere. There's nothing between here really and San Francisco. What else? You could get a good sidearm like the one that I carry for $15, a good Colt 45 revolver. The Winchester would be about $35. This same gun today is $800. And you better believe these men, when they weren't underground, they're carrying a weapon to defend themselves. Outside of town, it's Apache country, number one. Number two, you're a miner making all that money, and there's always going to be some cowboy trying to take it away from you. So you better have a weapon to defend yourself here in Tombstone. I guess, though, at the end of the day, the most important thing you could spend your money on here is right up above us in Allen and Tough Nut Streets. Guess what? We had 110 saloons and beer was only a nickel. Those were the days. A shot of whiskey was 12 cents. Come on back around. Do you like pretty rocks, young lady? Do you like pretty rocks? Can I show you some pretty rocks? Come here, I'll show you some pretty rocks. Get up there to the chain. Take a peek. Look at the pretty. Don't be shy. Get up there. Take a look at the pretty rocks. Look at the pretty. Isn't that something? Beautiful, no? So do you know what a geode is? Who knows what a geode is? Naturally occurring cavity in solid rock that contains all kinds of beautiful minerals. It's from ancient volcanic activity. So what we're seeing here in this big cavity is just like a big geode, except we call them vugs. It's an old Cornish mining term for these cavities, vugs. So here we find all these beautiful quartz crystals, calcite, siderite, boxwork, desert rose, azurite, malachite, wolfenite, all kinds of pretty expensive minerals. Did miners care about pretty rocks, though? No, they didn't. Smart girl. All they cared about was that ugly black rock. They didn't like pretty rocks. Now, we like pretty rocks. I know my girlfriend does, and it's a very expensive hobby, by the way, collecting pretty rocks. I want to point out while we're here, there's a hole back there, and there was another hole back there. Back here is what's known as a winds and arrays. It's a man-made vertical shaft.